Hello everyone, James here from Pyramid Performance and welcome to episode 4 of our Intuitive Eating for Fat Loss series. I hope you're enjoying the journey so far, and of course if you're watching this video it's because you've watched episode 1, you've taken on board all of the instructions from that, you've then moved on to episode 2, done exactly the same and exactly the same for episode 3. So just a little bit of a recap, not to inform any of you guys who are cheating and skipping ahead of course, but as a bit of a recap, episode 1 was all about accountability, and we were talking very much about the importance of writing a food diary and why we're going to be doing that on this journey. And that really was the first task, the first thing that I wanted you to focus on. It was very much about getting used to writing that food diary and I guess becoming more conscious about the decisions that you were making when it came to your food. And remember, we think that we are quite conscious about what we're eating, but a lot of the time it can become part of subconscious thought. We don't really think about it in the bigger picture. We might think of it in a localized sense, but we don't think about it in the bigger picture. So that was the purpose of writing a food diary. And again, if you're up to this episode, it should be because you have been doing that. Now, if you find that you haven't really been writing your food diary as regularly as perhaps what this journey needs you to, then don't be hard on yourself. If you want to persist on this journey, just take it up from now. It's a new day. Don't beat yourself up about what you've not managed previously and just crack on. And of course we had the exercise that came with episode 2, which was actually going back through that food diary and having a bit of a look through what you'd been doing in your meals throughout the course of the week, what your habits were, and without any kind of layered information from myself about what perhaps you should or shouldn't be doing. It wasn't really about that. It was about just have a look through it and look at the meals that you feel do correlate with what you're trying to achieve, that you're quite happy with. Have a look at the ones that you think obviously aren't the case without the help of a nutritionist, the things that probably you wouldn't imagine being there as part of a healthy lifestyle, even though we can do those things. And we were looking at the ratio between the two. That was the goal there, and the task then going into the next week was literally just trying to change that ratio. If you were looking at 50 meals that you or 50% of the meals that you were quite happy with versus 50% that you weren't, my task to you was just try and improve that percentage, and that's what I want your focus to be week on week. And that is a great place to start, because trust me, even in a short period of time, just making small layered changes, you will see big results. We went into last week and we were talking a little bit more about that. We also added the extra layer about protein and briefly skimming on the macronutrients, so your proteins, your carbohydrates and fats, but particularly protein. And one thing that I asked you to do over this last week was try and make sure that every meal that you sat down, every occasion that you ate, you actually had a meal, an occasion, whether you deemed it in your mind as being a snack or whatever else, was just to try and make sure that you were getting a palm full of protein, and that could have looked like 3 boiled eggs, it could have been a steak, it could have been some chicken, it could have been maybe a low-fat Greek yogurt or whatever it might have been. It was the goal was to try and really consider the protein element of what you were taking in. Now at the moment we're not looking at going hardcore on tracking or counting of calories or weighing of foods, because that's not what intuitive eating is really about. It's about understanding that in order to make any form of progress we have to look at where we are, and we are a reflection of where we are and what we've been doing. And if we're not 100% happy with that, it's very much understanding that, okay, what is the next step? And as long as we are committed to making small changes over time from that situation where we weren't happy and everything that led to that, then we will see changes physically. And we want to talk about a little bit more here in episode 4, as well as giving you, the next step physically with your food diaries and something to focus on there, is actually talking a little bit more about the psychology of keeping on going. It's and I think it's very appropriate, because over the decade plus that I've been doing this and I've been helping people, it's very common that as you get into the 4th week generally of any kind of journey, you tend to see that's when people start to doubt the process, whether they're doubting themselves or whether they try and deflect that doubt that might be manifesting in terms of their behavior on what they're doing. This isn't working for me. This, I can't do this. These are the types of things that start to come up. I'm not seeing any progress. Oh, I've only lost this, I've only done this. And what we tend to see as we get up to this kind of 4-week marker, people go into things, they're enthusiastic at the start, because when you start something, you're closer to that point, that really key moment of any journey of realization that you want to make a change. So you're close to it. And as you get further away from that point and you start focusing on something else, sometimes you can forget that ultimately, why you're doing this, and that you want to make positive changes, that you want, for example, body fat to reduce, that you want to have a better relationship with your food, that you want a bit of weight loss, you want to feel more confident, whatever the goals are. There was that moment when that was happening, and then there was week 1, and then there was week 2, and as you start getting to week 3, week 4, you can start questioning the process. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the psychology of that and what we really need to do to go forwards, because I'm going to give you the magic ingredient here of most journeys, the magic pill that everybody is searching for. And I'm going to charge you for this tidbit of information, but the key thing over a long period of time is consistency. Now, consistency does not mean adherence to the plan every single moment of it, every single step of it. Not in the slightest. That's not what it means. Consistency is generally being in the place more often than not than you don't want to be. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. It's you used to exist in a place which you weren't happy. There were a set of habits and behaviours and lifestyle choices which led to you ultimately wanting to make a change. And it's about flipping that on its head so that actually both things come together and you are happy. You're actually happy with generally your lifestyle and the balances that you have, and also with your body and how you feel about your body and the health of your body and the like, and how that impacts the mind. And that's what we're looking at here. Okay, so it's about that consistency over time. And that means that, you might have had instances over this journey so far, this short journey, and we're talking, if you are on episode 4, you're anywhere from sort of 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks into this probably. That's where you should be. You certainly shouldn't be any less time than that. If you've been just doing the layered changes, that's about where you are, okay? And, you might think, do you know what? I didn't write my food diary yesterday. I forgot to write this in. I had a takeaway. I ordered a felt pants, and my reaction to that was I ordered a Domino's pizza. I'm not the BBC, but obviously there are other pizza providers out there. But I ordered a Domino's pizza. I'm off the wagon. How often do you hear those terms? And what I'm here to teach you is that, fit, healthy people who in your mind physically look great, they look fit, they look healthy, they behave that way, they do things. I promise you now, they eat Domino's pizzas, they have McDonald's, they have cake at birthday parties. These are all parts of a balanced, healthy lifestyle and way of being. And the last thing that you want is to attribute guilt to eating any type of food ever. It shouldn't exist, because what then manifests, what can manifest, and this is what we're talking about today when we're talking about the psychology of going on a food journey and continuing so that you get a consistency, is that you don't want to feel like you've been knocked off of this metaphorical wagon. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as that. If you've made a choice when you've started this journey and you've decided to eat something which might be something which is quite obvious, probably doesn't correlate with your goals. Right? So let's say, for example, it is that pizza or burger or chips or whatever it might be that in people's minds, biscuits, cake, chocolate, that in people's minds can't be part of a healthy lifestyle, which, again, I've said this in previous episodes, they absolutely can be. But what can happen is that because you have that relationship, that negative relationship with food, where you attribute guilt to that you do think that you're then off the wagon. So what's the point? What is the point? I've just eaten a pack of biscuits. I've been so good. and I've eaten a pack of biscuits and now it's over. You know, I might as well forget about all of the reasons and the motivations for me starting this journey, and I might as well chuck them out the window, and I might as well go back to the lifestyle and the way that I was eating and living before engaging on this journey, because I've ruined it, you know. And when you hear this out loud, and this is the importance of having some kind of accountability, someone to have feedback, or even just listening to this type of language, you realise how ridiculous that actually is. And it is ridiculous because you're talking about one meal. You know, one of the exercise that I've got you guys to do is to literally go through those meals, and anything that you are happy with, you know, put that smiley face, and anything that you think doesn't correlate with your goals, not because it's bad or anything, you know, but you put a face that is less happy. And again, that doesn't correlate with good or bad, but you're looking at the percentage between the two. Well, if you eat one meal, there's one occasion of eating at this stage, you know, which in your mind doesn't correlate with your goals, why would that mean that you're off the wagon? You choose to have a fish and chip. I love fish and chips. I go to my mother and father-in-law's, obviously not right now, we're locked down, but I go to my mother and father. I love Haydock's Supper Bar or Crispy Cod. I love a fish and chips. And you can have fish and chips, and you can lose weight, and you can lose body fat, because it's looking at the bigger picture. It's the exception rather than the norm. And that's what we're trying to change here. Your normal daily habits. The breakfast you tend to have most days, not necessarily every day, but most days, is a particular way, okay? And it correlates with your goals. And your lunches tend to correlate with your goals, and your teas tend to correlate with your goals. And all of these, they tend to correlate. But you know what? If you have something and it's the exception, it's not a problem, because it's an exception. And this is a much healthier way of thinking about food, and it's going to be an absolute key tool in your arsenal to achieving, again, the most important ingredient really with any journey, which is to keep on going, to keep on moving forward. You know, if you don't keep on moving forward, then you're not giving yourself any opportunity to make the adjustments that you need to do to continue to get progress going forwards. You know, you just stop, you go back, and that's it. So I guess I'm sat here telling you that, you know, hopefully if you've got to this video, and even if you're feeling, or maybe you're watching this video and, you know, you stopped a week or 2 weeks ago, don't worry about it. You know, let's just get back to it. Just start taking one, and going forwards, when you feel a perceived setback, don't let it disrupt ultimately the fact that you want to make, you are here because you want to make changes. That's why you're here. That's why you're listening to me right now. That's why you're writing a food diary. You want to make positive changes. Don't forget that. But don't beat yourself up to the point where, you know, you stop writing your food diary. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about the things you can't control. You know, you can't control the past. So don't waste your time dwelling on it and beating yourself about what's happened previous. Just use that as, okay, that's where we are, that's objective now, it's solidified, it's there, that's what's happened. It's just on to the next meal. It's on to the next meal. It's okay, what's my next meal that's lined up? And okay, next thing you know, a day's gone past, 2 days have gone past, you've been writing a food diet, oh, there's something that doesn't correlate with goals. Who cares? Don't worry about it, just keep going. And every now and again, look back, review, and go from there. Okay, so that's the first point, you know, is dealing with perceived setbacks. They're not setbacks, it's part of normal life. Trust me, you know, if in your mind, and you know, this isn't all about how you look, of course, but you know, there's nothing wrong with wanting to engage in a journey like this because you want to feel better about yourself and your body, and you know, part of that might be how it looks to yourself or to other people, whatever it might be. You know, but trust me, if you visualize a place that you want to be, then the main difference isn't that person never does any of the things. It's not that they never have in their food diaries faces that aren't really sure or are unhappy. You know, that's all part of a balanced lifestyle, and it's really, really key. So when those things come up, don't beat yourself up, don't be hard on yourself, because it's through beating yourself up, it's through being hard on yourself that you're more likely to become despondent, And it's when you're despondent, that's when you give up. And giving up, is the self-fulfilling failure, isn't it? It's the only way really that you won't succeed on this journey is just by stopping and giving up completely. And I'm not talking about stopping momentarily. It's just giving up completely and deciding that you don't want to continue to learn and you don't want to continue to find solutions. This is all about finding solutions. This is not about setbacks. Setbacks are important because we can learn from them. If you were in a situation, so of course at the moment, you were in a situation and your family are there and they all want a takeaway on that evening, and you might have felt like you were obliged to join them in that. Okay, now it's about learning that ultimately you're in control, that you don't have to do that, but also that if you do, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. If you want to have the takeaway, it's not a problem. Just look at the bigger picture. Look at the bigger picture and don't do it all of the time. If it's every night, if it's every night on top of other things, so every time that you're having a cup of tea, that's the biscuits. Every morning that you wake up, it's a sugary cereal breakfast that's not really doing anything for you. You're talking about all of these layers all over the place that ultimately we're trying to bring together into forming a pattern of a healthy lifestyle. And a healthy lifestyle has to include things, for the most part, which make you feel good and happy, and being able to do things like that, or have a drink of wine with your we've got lovely weather at the moment, having a Pims on the lawn or whatever it might be, it can all form part of a healthy lifestyle. So I guess that's the real point there, is dealing that these aren't setbacks. These give us opportunities to progress and learn. When this lockdown is over, it might be a case that you go out to eat something, or maybe you're somebody who likes to eat out quite a lot. Now, if you like to eat out quite a lot, then that's probably going to be quite a regular habit. So those things aren't the exceptions to the norm. So it's looking at it and not seeing that, okay, well, when I eat out, every single time I eat out, I have to choose to have a cheese and bacon burger with fries. That obviously is going to make achieving everything that we want to achieve a little bit more difficult, isn't it? It's going to make it tougher, But it might be a case that, every now and again you do that, but you learn, because this is something which has come up, but hang on a minute, I eat out quite a lot. So if I don't want this to be a habit which is negatively impacting my ability to go forwards, what do I need to learn? It's giving us an opportunity to learn something. That setback is giving us an opportunity to find solutions. Well, do you know what? They've got a steak on there, and the steak comes with chips and onion rings and fries, but they've also got some side greens here and the like. And do you know what? For what I'm trying to achieve, that probably works better. So do you know what? I'll get the steak because I want the steak. But excuse me, instead of the chips there, can I have the seasonal vegetables or the salad that you do or whatever, and can I have that on top of that? There's always a solution, and that's a big part of what we're trying to teach here, is that if you want to, you can always find a solution that fits and correlates with your goals for the most part. Okay, so that's first part of dealing with setbacks. Another one as well, sort of being about 4 weeks in, that we can think about, is that you're worrying about whether you're making progress or not. Okay, so it's that whole thing of, I'm not getting to where I want to be as quick as I would like, or I'm not sure whether I'm getting there. Am I wasting my time doing this journey? Now, first of all, I'm going to tell you now, no, of course you're not. If you are making changes with your diet consistently enough, then you will be making changes. It's a fact. It's science. And it works 99.99999% of the time. If you were living one way, okay, which was in a calorific surplus, which had lots of choices, which you yourself, without my input, would recognise that doesn't correlate with my goals. And if you're switching that up, and even with whatever your level of nutritional education is, and there's tons of things out there, whether they're right or wrong, which will have had a leaning on what you believe to correlate with goals. Even if you're using your set of nutritional education, you're creating that switch, I am pretty certain that would be enough of the changes to have started to manifest in the body. Now, in terms of the speed of it, remember, we spoke at the beginning, we're not looking for, I've lost a stone in a day, whatever. We're not looking for that. It's not sustainable. It's silly. It's not healthy in itself. You will rebound. There are tons of other negative impacts from doing that, that kind of thing. We're talking about sustainable weight loss over time. So you're looking at anywhere between 1 and 3 pounds a week as an average. You might have found that when you went into this, that that because of wherever you were and because you made changes, that actually you dropped quite a lot quickly. And then, we see this a lot with a lot of the groups that people go to. I'm not going to mention any of those groups, but you can see it a lot where, people will go in their way and, I've lost 7 pounds, I've lost 7 pounds. And then the following week, because they lost 2 or 3 pounds, they are negative about that. Oh, I only lost this week, or I only lost a pound this week, I lost half a pound. They're moving in the right direction. These, weight in particular is to be looked at as a trend over time, and that's what we're looking at. Now, if we are tracking weight as a trend over time, so if you've got a starting weight and you're about 4 or 5 weeks in, and maybe you've been weighing yourself once a week, same time, first thing in the morning, you don't really at this stage need to be doing it more than that, because we're talking about intuitive eating, really being on it with weight and the like isn't necessarily going to be healthy, but nor is the over focus on the result of what we're doing. Down the line, it does become important for somebody like me, a nutritionist, to be able to see that number so that I can get a bit of a general idea about whether you need to make adjustments. Because of course it could be a case that actually you are no longer in deficit, that actually you are neutral, or you've gone back into surplus. But we'll only be able to see that over a period of time as you're an individual. That's not what we're looking at here for yourself. What we're looking for you is to do things intuitively, so you don't become over obsessed about the weight. It's just something you can keep an eye on over time. That's what it's all about, because weight is fickle. You can change weight, I can change. I'm a big dude, I can change by 3, 4, 5 pounds in a day. When I'm bigger, it could be even more than that. So the weight is there to be tracked as a trend over time. Now, what I learned when I first became a fitness instructor, personal trainer, back when I worked in a commercial gym environment, and it doesn't happen to me anymore, people were given to me as clients back then, whereas people come to me because of my reputation now, because they know me, or they know people who've worked with me, they've seen the successes of clients and the like, or they've heard good things. But back then, of course, that wasn't the case. And one thing that you would really, really see with people that would kind of be, put in front of me, is that when they would go on these journeys, they would become over focused. I was a new personal trainer. I was pretty green, and I was doing all my case studies, and I was doing lots of measurements. I was measuring people, taking body fat, and it's not particularly accurate, but to manage a trend, you take body fat, you take weight, you do all the measurements and everything. And what I learned quite early on is that it can mean at the start of somebody's journey, and I'm talking about the 90%, I'm talking about most people. I'm not talking about the small percentage who are maybe trying to get to that next level again, of really getting the body fat down, and being able to see another level of definition, or whatever it might be, because they've got a photo shoot or a stage or whatever it might be. We're not talking about that. We're talking about most people. And you'd find that with most people, is that if you start them off from a place where it's all about the numbers, then that's what they can become focused on, and that can become another reason to feel like you've got a setback, because you become over obsessed about whether the body fat percentage is down or not, whether the measurement that you've taken, which if you're doing it yourself in particular, that's not going to be giving you an accurate bit of data, in terms of a measurement, especially if you're doing it yourself, and with things like body fat and the like, But people become over obsessed by the numbers rather than focusing on the journey. So somebody would maybe complain or be worried about the fact that their weight hadn't come down, rather than the fact that they've not been executing a plan. So they're there and they're checking their weight, but that's all well and good. But if you're focusing on the result and not the plan, then you're not going to get a result. You have to focus on what it is that you need to do rather than the result of what you're doing. And again, that would be a great bit of advice that I would give to any of you out there who are looking at intuitive eating for fat loss, is don't become over obsessed at this point, at the very least, with your weight and the like. Certainly not sort of 4 weeks in. Now, if we do start seeing, and we'll come on to this in a later episode, we do start seeing that you start getting to periods where you've got sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks where really, you know, the weight as an indicator, if losing body fat is something that you obviously if it's staying the same and that's where you want to be, then that's great. But if you are looking at reducing body fat, if you're seeing that trend isn't generally, you know, it might go up some weeks, but I'm talking about the general trend. Where's that line? If you're going to, you know, draw a line through the points, you know, is it generally going down? If that's not the case, then that means that that's an opportunity. It's a flag in the sand again. It's giving us an opportunity to react. It's teaching us something. It's teaching us that if I'm living like this, then I will be about this weight. That's where I'll be. So with my activity, my current activity levels, that's not just my exercise, but also my non-exercise activity thermogenesis, you know, so basically just how active you are doing normal day-to-day tasks, you know, that plus eating this way keeps me at this weight. So you know that anything that you do on top of that will continue the trend in a direction you want to go, okay? And that could be a case that you look at it and say, all right, well, I'm gonna increase my cardio, you know, by this much, and I'm going to increase how much cardiovascular training I'm doing. Currently I'm not doing anything, but now I'm going to do half an hour 4 times a week. You know, that's going to then contribute towards the deficit. And it might be a case that you say, right, okay, I'm also going to remove, I'm eating these meals here. At the moment, my balance is about 80-20. I'm going to take it up to about 90-10 in my mind, or I'm eating this meal a lot. I'm noticing I'm having 2 handfuls of this. I'm going to change that to 1.5 handfuls. Trust me, when it comes to intuitive eating, that is where it is. That is the things that's what we're looking for to make progress. That's the route to continuing that trend towards where we want to be. So again, in this episode, we're very much dealing with the mentality, the psychology of keeping on going, you know, and really mainly focusing on 2 key areas there. One, you know, to keep going with adherence is not beating yourself up if you ever don't execute anything which is part of the plan, or you do something which you think in your mind is going to be catastrophic. Like, it's not. Just learn from it and move forwards. That's all we can do. Don't forget that you are here because you want to be here, because you don't want to be here. And you're going down this particular path because you recognize that you don't want to do something extreme that stops you from being able to, you know, make certain choices from time to time, which, you know, clearly don't correlate with your goals. You know, and they're not. You don't use language either, like cheat meals or anything. You're not cheating anything. You're not. You know, who are you cheating on? If you want to have, you know, your Domino's pizza, have it. You know that it makes adhering to your goal and getting there, you know, tougher. And there are strategies that, again, later down the line that we can do to sort of make that fit with everything that we're doing. But for the time being, don't stress about it. Just look at the bigger picture and then just move on to the next meal, move on to the next meal. And that's point number 1 of the psychology is, you know, just don't let these things set you back to the point where you just give up. And point number 2 is also don't become overly focused on the results of what you're doing right now. Focus on the plan and making changes to that plan as you go, and continuing trying to be better or layer something on top of that rather than the result of that. And as we go along, if you are tracking because you want weight loss, for example, even if you want to stay the same, if you are tracking that, if over time you're finding that things aren't moving in the direction you want to go, don't get frustrated, you know, be excited. Be like, okay, well, I know now that I've consistency is key. I've consistently been eating this way, you know, I've been living this way, I've been exercising this way, and I'm staying about here. Don't be beat up about it. You just know that you need to make some tweaks, changes to keep up the progress, okay? So those are the 2 bits that we're looking at in terms of adherence going forwards, okay? So before we wrap up this video, I'm just going to give you one more thing to think about on top of that, and this is the food plate. This is the idea of, okay, what generally can we be aiming for in terms of a plate of food. Now, we've already talked about one aspect of every meal that we want you to focus on, which is that kind of handful of protein, okay? So that handful of protein, no matter when it is in the day, that you eat, no matter what it is that you're eating, you're trying to look and say, okay, what's the source of protein that I'm having alongside that? We've done that as the first bit. And the next bit is to look at sort of traditionally how many meals do we eat across the course of the day. And now that's going to be different from individual to individual. It's completely up to you. You tend to find that if people eat with a slightly higher frequency, some people eat with a slightly higher frequency across the course of the day, makes it a bit easier for them. They're less likely to have those long periods of hunger where they feel the need to make choices which perhaps don't correlate with their goals. But that's not the case for everybody. You might be somebody who likes to eat a couple of big meals or whatever it is. And although I would recommend, if you can, spacing some of your protein portions out across the course of the day, that isn't your primary concern right now. Okay, but what we're looking at is what should that plate of food kind of look like? Well, we've got that fistful of protein, and somewhere that you really can't go wrong really is making sure that you're getting lots of different coloured veg going into your meals, and that doesn't have to look like broccoli, peas, cabbage, on a plate and then a chunk of chicken breast or whatever. It could be that you have decided to make, I don't know, you decided to make meatballs, and you've got some lean minced meatballs, and that for a handful of protein, it might be 3 or 4 of these lean meatballs for you, and you get some tomato passata, and you've got mushrooms in there, and peppers and spinach, whatever else. You blend it all up, and you've cooked the meatballs separately, you put that in, and then that forms the main basis of your meal. You've got tons and tons of veg in there, and then you've got your fistful of protein. Okay, and then that leaves us with the final portion really, because what we're not going to do, particularly if we're looking at intuitive eating for fat loss, is to focus too much on I guess adding our fats in. It's likely that because of the nature of this kind of trying to improve from where we were previous, it's likely that you'll be taking in enough fats. We can look at that down the line whether you are or you aren't, but it's likely that you're not going to have to aim that, right, well, okay, I need to make sure that I'm having 2 squares of dark chocolate to get my fats in, because we're probably not at that stage yet. You probably are getting your fats in through some of your meal choices. So, you tend to get fats in with your protein. So if you're having your steak or your mince or your eggs or your salmon or whatever your oily fish is, you're going to be tending to get your fats in through those things, especially if we're focusing on sort of a core principle of eating healthy, which if eat things that what they are, and so you're not having to get things out of the packet, you're not sure what's in there, that a chicken breast, hopefully when you see the chicken breast, it's a chicken breast, not chicken breast plus this, it's a chicken breast. We talked before about that meatball sauce, that you made. Well, what's in there because you've got tomato passata, which is just tomatoes, you've got peppers, and you've got mushrooms, and you've got onions and garlic and all of that, and whatever herbs and spice you want to put in, so what's in there. And it should be the same if you make a chili or a bolognese or whatever it might be. And if you're following those kind of rules, it's likely you're going to be getting your fats in. So I don't want you to look at a food plate and think I need to attribute a portion to fats. A fistful of fats is going to be quite a lot of fats, so you don't have to do that when we're talking about intuitive eating and visually looking at a plate of food. But one thing that we can consider and we can look at is our portion of carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates, just like fats were previously, went on to be demonized. There's nothing wrong with fats and there's nothing wrong with carbohydrates. They both have a very important role in the body. They're both important. The one thing that you would say about carbohydrates is that carbohydrates are probably the portion that's easiest to manage one way or the other. So whether you're looking to gain weight or to lose weight, it's probably the portion that is easiest to manipulate to go one way or the other. Just because in the very nature of its constitution, if you think about sort of what carbohydrates tend to be on our food plate, it's your rices, it's your potatoes, it's your bread, it's your pasta, it's these types of foods which tend to be your grains, your oats, whatever it might be. These are your carbohydrate portions, and to move one way, it could be a case that you've got to have an extra handful. If you want to gain weight, then I'm going to start by adding, still having my fistful of protein, do I need to really increase my fat? You could increase your fats to do that, but those portions are the easiest. They're also the easiest as a result to overeat on, because if you think of traditionally what a plate of food looks like culturally in various cultures, you're talking about, it will be a mound of rice, a little bit of meat and sauce, a mound of pasta, a little bit of meat and sauce. Sandwiches, you're talking slices of bread, bread with a bit of meat and salad and sauce or whatever inside it. Potatoes or potato-based foods, again, bit of veg, bit of meat. So it's because they were, these were cheap staple food, easy to produce cheap energy for the human body. That's why culturally that tends to be what we think of first when we look at a plate of food. And what we're going to try and change with intuitive eating is we want protein to be the first thing that we think about, and that actually that the accompanying carbohydrates, again, you're managing the portion by just keeping it about the palm size of your hand for the time being. And I want that to be something that you focus on. Now, that's not that you start adding it if it wasn't there already, but if you are having those types of foods, just look at your hand and go, okie dokie, well, I have been having, I've been having 4 rounds of bread for my sandwiches, but actually, really, I probably only need 1 or 2. So that's an intuitive change, isn't it? That if you go from having 2 lots of sandwiches to having 1 sandwich, or having a sandwich which is full, that is going to be an intuitive change to achieve some progress with. So that's an easy little change there for you, isn't it? And it's likewise, if you've been having, you have your roast dinner, if you're having a couple of Yorkshire puddings, you're having some roast potatoes and some other form of potato, if you know that, well, actually, let's just limit that carbohydrate portion to something which is about the palm size of my hand. I've got my meat, so my chicken, my beef, whatever it might be, there's my meat. That's probably got my fats taken care of in that, and then I'm going to have my handful, I'm going to have some mash with that, I'm going to have some roast potatoes, again, my fat's probably taken care of, and then the rest of the plate will be veg. And this is a really good way of managing what that plate of food should look like. Now, of course, again, if your plate of food is sort of stacked mountains high because you're looking at your palm size and there's no kind of upper limit to that, and you're stacking it like that, then again, intuitively, really, is that probably going to be the way that we want to be going for what we're trying to achieve for fat loss? Then the likelihood it isn't. So, just some little things to think about there going into the next week in terms of your actual food diary itself. Keep on with the tasks that you've been doing previously. The things we talked about with protein, with water, with sleep, with writing the food diary. Now you've got the extra thing of looking at that plate of food and kind of just making sure that you are getting plenty of different colours of veg and the like, however that might be constituted. We talked about, it doesn't have to be, you've got 3 handfuls of broccoli across half the plate or whatever. It can be what we talked about with the meatball sauce or the bolognese sauce, or you have a curry again. Just using tomatoes are a great base for all of these sauces, and really straightforward to do. There'll be lots of really straightforward recipes out there, and just mainly use veg and spices, and that's a really, really good way to go. And then just managing that carbohydrate portion, again, just make sure that you're not ever really having a huge amount more of carbohydrate on your plate than your protein, and it's just a really easy, basic, straightforward place to move on to. So good luck, stay motivated, keep putting one foot in front of the other. We've spoken about this, we've spoken about the psychology of it. Don't get over focused with the result of what you're doing. Just keep an eye on it, basic eye on it, because that will give you an idea about whether you need to make some more changes going forward. But ultimately, because of the way that we're doing this, then that should be what you're focusing on anyway. I haven't asked anybody to go from 50% of things that correlate with their goals, 50% of things not, to 100 and 0. So I asked you to make an improvement on it, and week by week try and make some improvement of it until you're somewhere around the 80-90% mark. Okay, and that's what we're looking to do. And if you do that, trust me, you will make some progress, and that will happen physically and physiologically, as well as everything else. And the other side of it is, of course, don't allow yourself to be disrupted if you have something which doesn't correlate with your goals. Having things which don't correlate with your goals is very much part of this journey. So don't let it feel like a setback. Don't think, I've ruined it, because that's just not how this works. So good luck. Let me know how you get on. Get in the comments. Let me know how you found this video. I'm looking forward to welcoming you back, feeling really motivated and feeling super focused on week 5, where we get the next set of instructions. Take care, everybody.